Hello and welcome to the Overland Journal podcast. I'm Ashley Giordano and we're hiding out from the rain at Overland Expo West and I'm really excited. I have an adventure motorcycle couple here.
I'm Marisa Notier.
And I am Tim Notier.
And we make Notier's Frontiers because it rhymes. And we ride two up on a KTM 1190 motorcycle. So that means I'm on the back. I do not ride motorcycles. I don't even ride bicycles. We have been all over the world. We've gone to 3 different continents on the motorcycle through the Americas. We started 4 years ago down to the bottom of South America. And from there, we shipped the motorcycle up to Canada and shipped it down to South Africa and worked our way up through Africa, where during the pandemic, we got stuck in Uganda and kind of ping-ponged between Uganda and Kenya for over a year before we came back to the U.S. this May.
Thanks to this week's sponsor, GCI Outdoor. Whether you're heading out for a weekend of adventure in the woods or to your backyard fire pit, GCI Outdoor gear is ready for whatever you have planned. GCI Outdoor has been around for 25 years, so they know what they're doing when it comes to the best in portable recreation gear. GCI has innovative products ranging from outdoor rockers to complete camp kitchens and everything in between. And with a limited lifetime warranty, you know they stand behind everything they make. GCI Outdoor gear is comfortable, durable, and built for adventures, big and small. Try them out for yourself. Head over to their website at gcioutdoor.com and save 10% off your first purchase when you sign up for their email list. Thanks again, GCI.
Nice. That sounds like quite an adventure.
It has been.
One of the fun facts that I learned about you two was that you were actually high school sweethearts originally. And then there was a decade or so that you were apart, but you reunited.
This is true. Marisa went off to explore the world, and I didn't really travel too much further than the hospital I was born in. But I had bought a house, I had a good job, I bought a motorcycle, and Marisa was exploring the world and would come back every year or so and we'd reunite, and she would have a lot of amazing stories to tell us about faraway lands. And me and my circle of friends all kind of had the same stories of, just nothing very exciting going on.
And you were originally both from Chicago.
Just
is that
west
right?
of, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you went to high school together.
That's correct.
And there's an amazing photo of you guys at prom on your website.
That is true. Yeah, that was quite a while ago. Yes, we did go to prom together. But like he said, we did separate for 10 years. And during that time, I was traveling and he wasn't. But one year I came back and I never forgot Tim. I never forgot his witty sense of humor. And I was just so happy to see him again. And we kind of rekindled things and the rest is history.
So were you in contact when you were gone on your travels with each other?
No, not really. She would come back. Again, we had the same circle of friends. And so we'd see each other at bars and kind of, get that weird tingly feeling that 15-year-old kids get, but now we were adults. But, it was always fantastic rerunning into her.
That's right. And when we started dating again, he had this big, huge motorcycle. It was a Yamaha Raider 1900. And I did not like motorcycles. Like I said before, I cannot ride motorcycles. I cannot ride bicycles. I didn't like the feeling of being on the back of one. Even though I had ridden on the back of a motorcycle before, I told him, I'm never getting on the back of your bike. And of course, he eventually convinced me just to take a ride around town. And that turned into little camping trips. Over the weekend, we would pack up that motorcycle and I had this big, heavy backpack that I would wear.
It's like a Swiss Army canvas backpack with a metal frame. Marisa is 5 foot nothing and 100 and nothing pounds. And strapping this thing to the back of her back was a little
it wasn't comfortable.
Extreme.
Let's just say that.
She was my sissy bar.
So eventually we realized we needed something that would be more suitable to the type of camping trips that we wanted to go on. Chose a motorcycle that could carry the gear that we wanted to bring with us and also be a bit more comfortable and go on the roads that we wanted to go down. They had gravel, we wanted something that would be able to handle that. And so we purchased the KTM 1190.
I knew that its bike's capabilities were higher than my skill set at the time. Because I just had a cruiser motorcycle. So there's not a lot of insane, intense off-road that I did on that. But I knew that as my skill set grew, that the bike would be already ahead of the curve of what I was learning. So I was excited to get an adventure bike with, with high ground clearance and all that goodness. So, and I think any bike that anybody picks is the right bike for them. But I feel like the KTM 1190 was a good fit for us.
Yeah, what I was going to ask, what specifically about that bike were you drawn to? Because you looked at other bikes as well, right?
I did. And to each individual, there is a checklist that they must go down. And so my checklist will be different than other people's. But for me, I didn't want it to be too heavy, which once you get to a bike that big is already... we couldn't go too up with the amount of luggage we have on 650. And we've seen people going, but I wanted a larger displacement that could take us down highways at good speed, but also with the capability of going down some nastier roads. And, there's the Fave 5. And since I bought my bike, other bikes have come out. And there's a lot of variables that you as an individual have to go down. It was weight, it was ground clearance, and the biggest factor for me was financial. So I didn't necessarily even have $15,000 to spend, but I would say like the Beamer was more than that. And so I convinced Marisa that we were saving money by buying the KTM.
Nice. So you bought the KTM, and then did you do some weekend trips before you went on your first big trip, which was the maiden voyage? Is that right?
That is correct. Actually, it was pretty much right after we bought the motorcycle that we went on this maiden voyage. We really wanted to test her out. We wanted to test our gear. And so we went around the Rocky Mountains. We took off some work, about 18 days, and we were able to hit up a bunch of national parks, and it was absolutely incredible. But we also really wanted to test ourselves to see if we liked being on the motorcycle that long or being just around each other all the time.
Because sometimes, it's you watch long way up, long way down, long way around. You watch a lot of people's Instagram and YouTube and this, that, and other thing. And it's this cool fantasy that you're looking at. It's not a reality of where you work every day and, and the shiny stuff that you see on YouTube that don't always show the dirt and grimy stuff that they don't put on their channel. And we wanted to be sure that we lived through some of those as a couple, as a team before we quit our job. The worst case scenario is we quit our jobs. We decide to go around the world on this exciting adventure. And then 6 months into it, we look at each other and say, are you enjoying this? I am not enjoying this. So that would have been awful. But thankfully, on our little maiden voyage, we found that we had a lot of commonalities as far as what we'd like to see, as far as nature. We're both huge into nature, and we were growing our off-road skills together, which is nice because if I came from like a dirt bike background and I was used to doing crazy stuff and she was not, that would have been a lot more stressful for her. So
I also think it was a really good test because we went through a lot of very trying weather. We had a lot of rain for days and days, and it was very, very cold when we went. We did Beartooth Pass. We went through some very chilly areas, through Yellowstone. And for me personally, I do not like the cold and wet. I felt that if I had survived that and I had really enjoyed it as well, then maybe if we went on longer trips, I would also enjoy that. I felt that it was a good test. But at the same time, we also learned that we needed new gear.
Okay. Yeah, those trips can be a great proving ground for gaining experience.
For sure.
Yeah. So what did you guys, obviously gear was one thing that you learned while you were on that trip that you took forward into your subsequent trips after that?
That's right. Actually, everything that we used during that trip, we did not bring on our big voyage. So.
Oh, wow.
And I was still bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about the future of what our motorcycle adventure could be. And I did go to the expo here in Flagstaff back in like
2017.
Yeah. I'm from Chicago. And so this is going to sound ridiculous, but I thought Arizona there's a big desert and it was going to be hot. And so I came woefully unprepared. I was freezing cold during the night and I woke up and I asked other people if they were also cold, and whoever said they weren't, then I dug into what type of gear they had because as Marisa alluded to earlier, she does not like to be cold. And so I knew that that we would have to up some of our budget-friendly gear to actual gear that works. And I don't think you have to spend, thousands of dollars to get that gear, but there is definitely a difference between
very, very budget and something that is actually going to be good throughout many years of very hard use.
Yeah. And so I came back home and told Marissa, hey, we're about to spend a lot of money, but we still have the same gear that we bought forever ago after we tested our original gear that completely failed us. And so, quality gear has paid for itself 3 times, 4 times over at this point.
What are a few of your favorite pieces of gear?
So Marissa.
My favorite is our down quilt because, like I said, I don't like to be cold. And so I had never experienced a camping trip where I had not been cold at night before. And when Tim came back from that expo, he said, I'm going to buy this down quilt. I know it's expensive, but you're going to love it. And he was right. I do love it. It's a quilt, so it doesn't have the under portion of like a normal sleeping bag. It's for 2 people. It's just like a blanket that is over us, but because it doesn't have the under part, the down doesn't get compressed, making it pretty much useless. So, nice. I love that quilt. It keeps us very, very warm.
No.
Another thing about the maiden voyage around the Rockies that I think was extremely important is that it really inspired us to go on this longer journey.
Right.
We realized that there are people out there who actually do this, who overland full time and who get to experience all of these new places and new cultures and meet new people. And that we realized is what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so after we came back home from that trip, we started planning and we thought, okay, maybe we should start saving money, really hunkering down and saving money for a few years so that we can continue the trip past the Rocky Mountains, maybe go to Mexico, maybe go beyond that, maybe go as far south as we can. Yeah, that really started us dreaming of this voyage that we've been on ever since.
Nice. And I know, Marissa, you had done extensive travels before you guys got together again. Whereabouts were you traveling through?
I did study abroad programs all over Asia. Primarily when I was backpacking by myself, it was in the Middle East. And so I had been familiar with being in new places and experiencing new cultures. And I knew that I really, really loved that. But I was concerned for Tim because he hadn't really traveled at all. The only other country he'd ever been to was Canada. And that was at a very young age.
No.
He didn't even need a passport back then. I was just concerned. I was concerned that we were going to quit our jobs. And after all this saving, we were going to get on the motorcycle and we were going to hit Mexico and he would want to turn back around.
No faith.
But that obviously didn't happen, which is great. But you obviously spent some time budgeting. And I think one of the biggest questions, especially at events like this, if I've been sitting on panels or Marissa and I have done panels together, one of the most common questions is how people afford to do this or how to budget or how much do you spend per day? And how did you guys figure out all of the details surrounding that and make it happen?
That's a really good question. And yeah, we do get asked that a lot. We figured that, we also talked to other travelers and wanted to know what their daily costs were in certain areas of the world. Since we first wanted to go through Latin America, we knew it was going to be a lot cheaper than traveling in the United States. We wanted to do primarily camping and our own cooking in the United States to save on costs. Yeah. But from there on out, we were able to stay in some hotels. It really works out to be sometimes better than just living in the United States. Mm-hmm. A year in these countries traveling can cost less than just a year working in the United States.
And during our little daydream budgeting, eyes on the prize and the distance, I found a very basic Excel sheet that somebody had made that was, enter in the amount of miles you plan to go with gas costs, with how many people, with whatever. And it was pretty much you just plug in some numbers and everybody's budget. You can spend as much money as you want. And there's people who spend less money than we do, but it was just a good tool to get a good average. And that's what we kind of based what we thought we needed their savings to be, because we had no idea whatsoever. We did host a German world traveler, Christian Vogel, and he traveled the world, and he said he only spent like $24,000 or something in a year. That was one guy. And so for us, we only do have one motorcycle, so it's not double the gas, but it is double the food. But again, so it was just law of averages of what we assumed we could, save up to travel. We saved for like 5 years under the assumption that we could travel for 3. The first year would be all of the Americas. The second year would be the width of the African continent into Europe. And then the third year was us getting to Mongolia. And financially, we're on track, but...
Nice. I was going to ask, when you did the original calculations, how accurate were they to the realities of traveling?
Actually, very accurate.
Nice.
I think we even spent under what we thought we were going to spend.
Yeah.
Great.
But
well, the time, like, I mean, we would be in Mongolia by now if we did what we planned. And I do suggest everybody, we had more time than money, right? But I would not, what we thought we'd do in 1 year, we spent 2. And I would not trade a day of that or some other alternate Tim who actually did the timeline and what country he was going to be in, because we just absolutely loved spending as much time as we could on each kind. Like South America, I could still be there and still be happy. Like,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
right. So we did go twice as slow as we thought we would.
And don't regret a second of it.
Yeah, we don't regret it. So yes, financially per year, we kept on track, but we also have done half of the distance of what we thought we would have done.
Right. Cool. Marisa, we talk about this on the Women Overlanding the World or Overlanding Women panel, and I love it. So I wanted to bring it up. But you spent some time in the Middle East and lived in Syria, and you speak fluent Arabic, right?
I do.
Yeah, that's incredible. But we talk about the benefits on that panel of being a woman and traveling overland. I'd like to hear your experience in those countries and what experiences you were able to be a part of because you're a woman.
I think this is a wonderful question because all too often, when it comes to female travelers, a lot of the focus is on safety issues and some of the negatives of being a female traveler. There are also a lot of positives that we have discovered. As I backpacked by myself, I discovered that in the Middle East, a place where you would think a lone female traveler, it might not be the best place to travel in. It was actually really remarkable for me. I was able to not only kind of go into the men's world because I was a foreigner, they just accepted me in their shisha shops and everything, but I was also able to enter the women's world and kind of get behind the curtain because they have little guest rooms that they have in all of their houses where the guests are allowed in, but nobody can enter the rest of the house unless you're a woman. Because if it's a Muslim family, that's where they take off their veil or their headscarf. And so only women are allowed to see that or family members. And so I was allowed into their world and it was really incredible. But it wasn't just when we were backpacking. I've noticed that just being a woman traveling with Tim as well has offered us plenty of opportunities because I think having a woman there softens the vibe a little bit and families are a lot more willing to invite you in to have tea and coffee or introduce you to their children. And we've been very fortunate with all the people we've met, but we've also had that opportunity to immerse ourselves in those cultures. And I'd like to think that being a woman had something to do with that.
Yeah. What were the experiences or what did you learn from going behind the veil, I guess, so to speak? Like what was it like back there?
I will tell you something. Some women who would wear burqas or completely cover their bodies and some of their face, it's all very mysterious and you wonder, what do they wear under that? And I can't speak for every one of them, but I've seen many women, you know, in the bathrooms or in their homes, they take it off and they are wearing some stylish clothes. I've seen mini skirts, you know, the high heels, the whole thing. So this is kind of what they show to each other. And they have female parties where they're all, you know, dressed out and you would think, oh, wow, this is a club, you know, just without men.
Yes.
So it is quite surprising.
And spending that much time in that part of the world, you learned a lot about the culture there. What are some things that you can share about that?
I really love the hospitality of people in the Middle East. You find hospitality everywhere, but they are on an incredible level out there. I really can't wait to get back there just because they are so welcoming. And as an American, I was quite nervous about going there. Just politically, you would think that a lot of people would have this automatic judgment about me. The truth is, I found that most people can really separate the person from their government because that's how they see themselves. They're not what their government does. And so they would completely welcome me and just take me on as a fresh new person, regardless of what country I was from.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So you guys drove from Chicago to Ushuaia, and then you went from Cape Town to Kenya. And
That's right.
Tim's written a few books. When did you start writing? Did you start during the trip, after the trip, and what inspired you to put pen to paper to record your journey in that way?
I wrote Maiden Voyage as our little trip around the Rockies, and I wrote that more for myself and my family and just to make myself kind of giggle and just for I didn't foresee me writing future books, but I was really inspired by like Sam Manicom. He's just an awesome guy. He's a mentor. And then when we did all the way down to Panama, I started taking more notes and writing. I actually didn't finish that book until we were in Tanzania. It was just awesome to relive our own experiences as I'm writing the pages. And again, I'm glad that people are buying it and they like it, but it was originally more for me. And it was just an after effect diary memoir that I wrote. It's just been really fun writing, and I never thought that would be something that interested me. I can't spell very well, but I'm surrounded by...
That's what good editors are for.
That's what good editors are for.
No one can spell.
No, it's been just fantastic, and South America was just too wonderful of a place not to write about in full detail too. So I've since written a third book.
Yes, I've really appreciated it because you remember all of these little things that I think I would have forgotten if it wasn't for you writing it down. And so I get to read these books and just giggle and just reminisce about it all. And that is one of the joys of traveling, is taking those pictures and in whatever way you can, recording your journey, whether it's journaling or having a blog or making videos, but looking back on it.
Yeah. And like Marisa and I would discuss, when I'm writing chapters and where was that place and this, that, and the other thing. And it's just really interesting how she is less than a foot behind me, and the different experiences that we've had through different countries, and like her outlook on certain scenarios and mine, it's like it was separated by 100 years and a million miles, but it's really good to combine.
That is so true. It's all about perspective. Another wonderful thing about traveling together is that we've been able to talk to each other about things that have happened in the past, or say, oh, doesn't that remind you of Colombia? Or sometimes I meet solo travelers and everyone travels in their own way, and some people really appreciate being on their own, and it's a personal journey that they wouldn't trade that for the world. But for me, I am so thankful that Tim has been with me every step of the way, and I get to relive everything with him through our memories.
Yeah, I don't think I would be on the road still if she wasn't behind me. And, I mean, like she said, people have their own personal rites of passage when they go by themselves, and that's not an incorrect way of doing it. But for my personality trait, I am very thankful to have a cheerleader behind me, a translator, a photographer. She's an all-in-one package of a good support crew.
Thank you.
You guys are so cute. I love it. By the way, for the listeners out there, there's a video that was captured in, was it Yellowstone or Yosemite?
That was Yellowstone.
Yes.
And so we had been on the road doing our little tour, and it
was our maiden voyage.
And I had a little special gift for her the whole time. And ironically enough, the night before, we had just gotten into a semi-argument about children and marriage and what would you say yes if I proposed to you? And she said, I don't know. Do you plan on having children? And, it was
big questions.
Big questions. And the very next day, it was when I was planning on proposing to her at Yellowstone. And I already got a I don't know. But,
no, you're sweating and shaking in your motorcycle boots.
She was sitting on the ring the entire time because I hid it underneath the pillion seat. And so little did she know. But we took a nice, lovely hike down by the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, or what do they call it? Was it
I think so. I think that's correct. Yeah, it's a beautiful yellow canyon.
And we got to a very nice point, and there was a lovely woman that was walking in the opposite direction. And I said, hey, can you snap a photo? And I proposed to Marisa, and she said no about 14 times. But
But here's how I said it. I said, no, no, no. So yeah, I realize after the fact that I never actually said yes.
yes.
But I did later,
Yes. I remember. So we met for the first time at Expo Mountain West. Yeah. I just loved chatting with you guys. And then I went onto your website afterwards and I saw that video and I felt like I sort of knew you, but after the video or during the video, I was like tearing up and like almost crying. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. It was so cool.
That's
so I have to check
awesome.
that out.
Thank you.
But yeah. So the most recent journey you were on was the Cape Town to Kenya trip, right? And COVID affected that trip a little bit.
It was supposed to be Cape Town to Egypt. And then from Egypt, we would somehow find a way over to Eastern Europe and then go through Europe. That was the plan. We had everything sorted out. We had all our paperwork, the carnet. And if anyone knows about carnets, that's no easy feat. And we were very excited to make our way through Ethiopia and into Egypt. But yeah, we got to Uganda and
the world froze. But
that's right.
silver lining to, scenarios. We had at that time been on the road for 3 years and we've adjusted to that lifestyle, obviously, but it was nice to play house again with each other. And we rented a house for 7 months. It was a very basic home. So it wasn't luxurious, but it was very nice. And we had to go shopping together and we had to cook our meals as a team and wash dishes and a bed and we had a living room.
We were like normal people.
Yeah, it was nice to play house for the first time in a long time. And it was also nice that we had there was a cat that had 2 kittens. And so we raised kittens for, and we
were very, very fortunate.
Yeah.
Because the whole world suffered. And we suffered as far as stress over the news and our family and everything in our own ways. We also counted our lucky stars every day because we had gotten stuck in an area of the world that was affordable for us to get stuck in. And that also welcomed us with open arms. There were a lot of countries that would have kicked us out and it would have been financially very difficult for us. And but instead, Uganda and Kenya both welcomed us and we became part of the communities that we were living in. And we really felt like we lived there and that...
we can say we lived in Kenya and we lived in Uganda. We've spent months in a single place in Mexico and Guatemala. Because sometimes it's nice just to park the bike and rent somewhere and just settle down. But in Uganda and Kenya, we lived there and it was amazing. It was amazing.
And it was such an opportunity to really immerse ourselves in that culture. Our original plan, it wasn't by any means fast for overlanding, but it was to spend a year in Africa and we probably would have zipped through Uganda and Kenya pretty quickly. Instead, we spent over a year in both Uganda and Kenya.
Wow.
And so that was such an opportunity looking back on it to, learn the local foods and a little bit of the language and
laugh with people. I was very fortunate in Africa because English is a lot of people speak English, whereas in like South America, I missed out on a lot of the cultural experience that Marisa would giggle and the ladies would laugh and I'd just sit there and kind of smile and thumbs up. In Africa, I was able to engage with people. It was kind of poor timing because not as social when the pandemic just hits. Everybody's kind of concerned about each other, but it was nice to be part of a community, even if it was foreign.
That's right. And also, if it had happened at the very beginning of our trip, I think things would have been very different in how we felt about it. But at that time, it was not unpleasant to take a break from traveling. And it was very refreshing. Sometimes I think pacing oneself is extremely important to overlanding because it really depends on how much time you have. Some people have to take off work and only have a very limited amount of time and try to cram in as much as they can. That is, one way of doing it. But we have discovered for ourselves that we like to really take rests in between a lot of traveling.
That was the longest streak we've had in the 4 years that we had a toilet every day and a shower every day.
So luxurious.
I know, right? It was amazing.
And it really recharged us to want to experience the world again. Mm-hmm. Sometimes after a lot of traveling, people can get jaded and, you see so many waterfalls and you think, oh my gosh, I can't see another waterfall. And that's a shame because they're beautiful. And so it was nice to take a break and to, just watch Netflix, just do normal things. And so that when I see that next waterfall, I'm just completely amazed and in awe.
That happened to my husband, Richard, and I when we were traveling through South America with the ruins or in Central. We're like, oh, another set of ruins. And we love going to ruins, but it just becomes the new normal, I guess. Or even in Patagonia, some of the hikes that we did that were absolutely incredible. There would be hikers that had come and flown in and they hadn't done the driving part. Yeah, exactly. And we had seen the section already. And they're like, this place is blowing my mind. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, it's pretty and it's awesome. But you could tell we needed a break because it is, if you're going long term, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And those rest times are really important. And to be able to go up back and appreciate everything.
A good reset button.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think some of that is unavoidable, but at the same time, like you said, just having that reset, just taking your time so that you're all starry-eyed once again, when you get to see that fresh new thing.
To me personally, I can see every ruin and each and every one of them is like a unique fingerprint. And I'm like, oh, but this one's got a little Spanish moss dripping off the side. And oh, this one's got a weird face carved in it,
100%.
And waterfalls and just, I can never see enough elephants in Botswana. There was never a time like, oh, there's the 181st one, so it's like,
but it's possible even for you, it's all about pacing.
There are those things that remain special every single time you see them for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was the most powerful insight or experience in that section of Africa for you? Like, what did you learn about that region when you were there? Culturally, I guess.
What's really interesting, and this isn't about culture, this is about nature, but Africa is just such a great place when it comes to nature. And when we had gone through Namibia, we had done a little 4x4 self-drive safari through Etosha National Park, which had all sorts of incredible animals. It was amazing, but we had tried really hard to see a rhino and we hadn't. By the time we got to Kenya, it just turned out that we were living 20 minutes away from the last two northern white rhinos. And there was a whole reserve full of rhinos.
And there was a blind rhino called Baraka. We fed him carrots. And it was kind of like my Christmas present to her because we did a horseback ride through the conservatory with rhinos around us. And it was, I like jokingly asked our guide, I'm like, so you ever get charged by a rhino? Thinking to be like, oh, stupid question. He's like, yes, all the time. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, wrong answer, buddy, wrong answer.
They had given us some really big horses, thoroughbreds and warm bloods. And I thought, oh, that's unusual, because we only ride whenever we can, but we're not experts or anything. And then I realized afterwards, no, they need these huge, fast horses to get away from the rhinos.
But if my riding skills are, the horse probably can get away, but I'm going to fall off. And,
But we lived. We did not fall or anything or get charged. So one rhino was pretty close to it.
I think one of my favorite cultural experiences when we were in the same area of Etosha, Namibia, we had stopped by a Himba village and we seen like 3 on the side of the road. And by the 4th one, I was like, that looks kind of cool. Let's pull over. So we pulled over and we take the little tour. And, these are the women with the red clay in their hair and the incense and very wonderful people, very happy. They're with little babies and all this. And as we're leaving, a gentleman asked us, said, hey, this woman and her small child actually need to get to the gates of Etosha. Would you by any chance give them a ride? And we're like, well, heck yeah, we will. And they had to put down like a blanket because she was covered in like red.
We were in a car at the time because
you can't go through Etosha on a motorcycle because then you're just a big cat toy.
Right. It's good to know.
But so and she couldn't speak much English at all. She can be like giraffe, and we'd there's a giraffe. But her just smile and her little baby in the back, and it was just like most tourists do not get the opportunity to give an Uber ride to a Himba woman to one of the most beautiful national parks we've ever been to.
That's right. And that's also one of the takeaways that I have from Africa is just the positive attitude of everyone. Yeah. Even during the pandemic, during a very dire time, people were smiling and just always happy to see us. Yeah. They're very resourceful, always positive, even if they have so little, and very generous with it as well.
And I think like I'd give you the shirt off of my back is a statement that is way overused here in the States. And people who we've run across, South America, Africa, they'll see that my sunglasses are scratched to all hell. And they'll, be like, oh, take my sunglasses, and it's like, no, buddy, that's okay. Don't worry. And he says, no, it would be an honor if you took my sunglasses to Europe, and then I could tell my friends that my sunglasses have made it to Europe, and I'm just like, it's just amazing. The kindness. And obviously you look at us and we have more money than them. And, it's
humbling.
It's very, very humbling to know that the generosity and kindness of people.
We're going to take a brief break and we will be right back. This week's episode is supported in part by iCamper. They make innovative hardshell and soft-sided roof tents that are designed to survive long-term overland use. Their revolutionary X cover won the Overland Journal Editor's Choice Award, eliminating the bulky PVC cover and also allowing for the fitment of crossbars for carrying bikes and kayaks. Their Skycamp Mini is another award-winning design that provides a hardshell tent in the footprint of a much smaller clamshell model. This is the perfect solution for smaller vehicles or on vehicles where rack space is dedicated to other systems. iCamper believes that the best times are those spent traveling, discovering the world with those you love most. You can find out more about their quality tents at iCamper.com.
Awesome. Thank you. So Scott Brady, when he's hosting this podcast, he asks everybody what their favorite book is. And I love that question. However, that's not my question. I have my own question for you guys. I'm asking everybody on each podcast episode with me, if you could travel to any country today, and also we're in a pretty busy area, so I think that's a motorcycle or something ripping around outside.
Okay, we love motorcycles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you guys could travel to any country today, which would it be and why?
There would be a big asterisk on my answer just because I haven't been to all the countries. And so there's a bunch of beautiful countries that are in our future that I'm very excited for. But my favorite country that we have been to is Peru, because I think it's just an adventure motorcyclist haven. There's the Andean mountains, and I tried to do as many passes through there as we could just because it was some of the most beautiful scenery. I would just look around, and I rode there myself from Chicago, and I know exactly how I got there, but I'd look around and I'm like, how did we end up here? This is surreal. This is beautiful.
So I'll answer that according to countries that we've been to and a country that I've never been to.
Yes.
For Tim, he chose Peru, and that was also, in my opinion, just naturally mind-blowing. But I loved Colombia, particularly because of the friendliness of the people, and it was also naturally really, really beautiful, but mostly the people. They were just outstanding everywhere we went. So positive and so friendly. And then as far as a country that I've never been to, drop me off in Mongolia. And I think that would be pretty exciting for me.
Anything that ends in Stan is my, that whole region of the world looks like it's going to be very fun to ride through. So that's my wish list. And this whole journey to me, I need to see castles. There's no castles in the States. I'm desperately trying to see castles to get to Europe, and it's momentarily paused, but we will see castles soon enough.
That's right. That is in our sights anyway.
Nice.
True.
So Tim, if people want to find your books, what are the titles and where can they find them?
So I have written 3 books so far. There's Maiden Voyage, and then there is 2 up in Overloaded, which is very fitting to our journey. That is from Chicago to Panama. And then the 3rd book is Blood, Sweat, and Notiers, and that is from Colombia to Ushuaia, and they are available worldwide on Amazon.
Perfect. And then if anybody wants to find you on the internet, where should they go? We
have Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you search Notiers, Frontiers, our lovely faces will pop up.
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. I'm sure the listeners have learned a lot about adventure motorcycle riding. It's a really inspiring story you guys have.
Thank you so much.